A lot of what we do is individual students working on projects where they're working very, very closely with administrators in relevant areas. So, for example, our chair of academic and administrative affairs works very closely with different deans in University Hall to sort of oversee how faculty advisors are chosen, how peer advising systems are playing out, if current first years are prepared to go into their sophomore year without maybe a peer mentor. A lot of it is more of just the individual relationships that are formed between students and administrators. But then a lot of times we also go a more formal route and we'll pass resolutions in our council that we publish in the BDH and show to administrators and just sort of put public pressure on administrators in order to enact the change we want to see at school.
Sometimes we don't see it, but Brown's administration is one of the most open and vocally active about seeking student support and input. I think I will say, like, having communicated with a lot of our peers, and especially being in this role right now, so I've been trying to liaison with a lot of different Ivy peers to see kind of, like, what are they doing on campus? What's been happening with them? I genuinely feel like our administration has been has been really active in making sure that they're constantly communicating with students. How that communication takes form, absolutely a question that we should be asking like loud and clear, because sometimes those avenues of communication are too narrow or too limited, or they're just talking to the same groups of students, including UCS. There probably needs to be more active fielding of student input there.
Probably the biggest obstacle is funds, because we're at a time where we're trying to reduce our deficit, and so expanding resources in a number of different areas at the same time is a difficult ask. Our job when we're writing those resolutions is to be communicating with administrators and different constituents in the process of how we're putting those together, so that we are aware of potential obstacles while we're writing them. So the resolutions or any other output that we generate as a council usually addresses both short-term and long-term concerns.
For example, with mental health, we've been having a conversation about the dearth of mental health resources on campus for over 2 years now. It's been something that's really been an active and prominent issue for a large swath of campus, and this is one of those issues like sexual assault that isn't isolated to one particular community. It's pervasive throughout. And one of the things that I felt a lot of not necessarily resistance, but just slowness in is our inability, or basically Brown's limited resources when it comes to being able to allocate them to student support services. So when we have been pushing for raising the cap on the 7-session limit at counseling and psychological services, we've been asking for that for a long time, but it hasn't happened, mostly because we just don't have the money to do that right now. But the goal is it needs to change. Like, we have money. That's not the problem. It's just the allocation that needs to be reevaluated and needs to be, like, constantly interrogated. The first reply I get is, we would love that. Ideally, that's really what we'd want to see from the administration, but there's always a but there that's like, we don't have the resources to do that right now. I wish that we would be more proactive about addressing those needs before something brews and culminates into like a anger thing and a protest thing and students yelling thing. I feel like we've raised this concern for such a long time that there has been and there always will be opportunities for our administration to be more proactive about searching actively for solutions to a lot of